If you use an AR-15 for home defense, you need to practice with your trigger and your sights. The Mantis Blackbeard allows you to do that much more effectively. It's a drop-in bolt carrier group and magazine that works with your trigger and your sights in your rifle to give you real-time feedback and reset your trigger up to 10 times a second. I use it all the time to be more proficient as a carbine shooter, and I recommend it highly.
Hey guys, it's Brian Hill with the Complete Combatant. Welcome to Mantis Dry Fire Mondays, brought to you by Active Self-Protection Extra. We'll talk about calling your shots today. This is a crucial skill to develop. The red dot certainly makes it easier to call your shots, but it can be done with iron sights too. And it needs to be practiced in dry and live fire so that we get a good basis for this, because if we can call a shot and preempt it, then we can take 0.2 seconds to make a better shot. Or if we make a bad shot and we can call it off the bad shot, then we can make a makeup, which will cost us about 0.3 or 0.4. But if we have to glance to the target and then assess, it's going to be at least 3/4 of a second, sometimes to 1.5 seconds. So we want to be calling our shot. It holds us accountable all the time. Now when we're shooting a target, either we're getting too little information or we're getting too much and wasting time. So either too little information and too little time, or too much information and too much time. If we looked at a slope principle, about 20% of the top of the slope of that hill would be the right place for us to do. All right, so whenever I'm dry practicing, I've got a target like this large circle. When I draw, I'm going to draw very quickly, and as long as I see the flash of the back plate, depending on what distance I'm at, or if I'm further out, a flash of the sight, then I'm going to be able to call that shot inside of it. As long as it's anywhere inside of that circle, I'm going to call it good. But when you're working at home and you're doing dry practice, you want to make sure that it's more of a binary system. If there's any doubt at all and you didn't see anything, then we're going to call the shot bad. Now some of you are going to spend a lot of time trying to zero it to the center of the center. Okay, we know ballistically that we're really not sure what's going to happen when a bullet hits flesh anyway, so we're going to designate a target and try to put rounds inside of that, so the center of the center may not actually benefit us, and it's going to cost us a lot of time to line that up. I see people routinely spend over a second trying to line up the center of the center. Shoot the size of the target, call the shot. If it's anywhere inside of that circle, then we're going to call it good. And that's the binary system of calling it. It's either good. If there's any doubt, then it's bad. When I'm shooting something smaller like this, I have to be much more careful with the way I press the trigger. And then I also have to see that dot dancing or floating somewhere inside of the circle. As long as I see it floating inside that circle, I'm going to call the shot good. Now, if I have iron sights, I need to see equal height and light and put the front edge of that sight somewhere in the middle of this target, and I should be good to go. The problem really becomes when you start shooting really small targets like this. All right, this is a 2-inch circle and bigger. If I see the dot in there, I'm going to have to really focus, or the front sight, I'm really going to have to focus. I'm going to precisely press that trigger, and then either I'm going to see that sight somewhere in the middle of that circle, or I'm going to call it a bad shot. And if once you get in the habit of calling this over and over, it will become part of your shooting. And then when you're about to make a bad shot, you can simply wave it off, spend an extra 0.2 on it, make sure that you get a good shot, and it's going to really yield benefits in the long run. And I want you to think this as self-defenders. You're going to be shooting on probably a dark shirt or a dark background. You're not going to see holes. So you can't look at the target and assess. You're going to have to call it off either your sights or your red dot. And that's the only way you're going to be able to know if you got a good hit or not. So let's really practice calling these shots. The more you practice it, the better it'll be. There's some trial and error. What I would suggest is sitting up a target, using your Mantis, and then every time you draw, try to get a good shot, call it a hit or a miss, and then see how it's starting to line up. The more demand you put on yourself to call these things, then the sooner you'll be able to do it on your own, and you'll start seeing verification on the target. So let's work on calling our shots. Let's make us accountable for every shot. A minimum of 90% hit rate is what we should be working for the armed citizen, because all those bullets are going to go somewhere. And that's what we're primarily about here at Active Self-Protection, is learning how to defend ourselves from concealment and getting a good first round hit. All right, guys, use your Mantis to back up your sight assessment, your calling. Make sure you do it with your iron sights or your dot. Simply easier with the dot. We're only looking at two things, the target and the dot. When we have the iron sights, we have the rear sight, the front sight, and the target, so it makes it a little more difficult. Be strict on yourself, make it a binary system. If it's a yes, it's a yes. If there's any doubt, it's a no. All right, I'm Brian Hill with the Complete Combatant. This is Active Self-Protection Monday, Mantis Dry Fire Monday, I should say. Make sure you get some practice in and start calling your shots. Let me know how you did. And as always, measure, refine, and perform.